Ironside will not be seen tonight, so we may bring you the following special program.
Please support the Word Balloon podcast by going to patreon.com/wordballoon. Become a part of the League of Word Balloon listeners. That's patreon.com/wordballoon.
Kingdom Come is 4 separate issues, 48 pages apiece. It was an all-immersive kind of lifestyle for me.
It blew people away. I mean, this was the most sought-after book there was.
This was something very new, very different.
No one had seen anything like that at that scale before.
It was amazing.
I never thought from anything that people would still be talking about this book 25 years later.
There were voices and lightnings and thunderings. This was my dream.
Welcome back, everybody. It's time again for another Word Balloon Live, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. This is a busy, busy man, or it's just that a lot of books are out there right now with the name Tim Seeley on them. Good to see you, buddy.
Hey, man, how you doing? Yeah, I'm frazzled.
Well, that's good. I mean, again, we get the fruits of your labor. Oh, by the way, here, right off the bat, Mark says a great time to be a Tim Seeley fan. I would agree, man, given all the great books that are out there right now. And we're going to talk a lot of them. As I was, I asked him, I'm like, all right, well, what am I missing? And he's like, well, and he spouted off a bunch of stuff. And you got all these IPs crossing over with other IPs in a lot of your stuff. You're kind of king of the crossovers right now.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's like it's easy for me to do some reason, like take one thing and stick it together with another thing. And when you do one of those, the people that make them want to be able to trust who writes it. So when you do one, if you do okay at it, then that tends to open up the door for other ones, which is great. But it's also, like Turtles of Grayskull, you've got Nickelodeon and Matt Mattel and IDW and Dark Horse. It's like, you have a lot more people that you are sort of working for. So they can be, they're a joy to write, but you're doing something with a lot of collaborators.
That's great, man. No, and by the way, we can start with Turtles of Grayskull, because first of all, it's great. It's you and Freddie Williams III, of course.
Yes.
And knowing both of you, this is like kind of first of all, Tim Seeley and his brother Steve are like the masters of the universe experts, that I go to when I need information about
right. It's true. We literally wrote the book on it, right? That's
a wonderful Art of Masters of the Universe coffee table book. Is it still in print, Tim?
Yeah, I mean it's probably like, it's one of the more successful things I've ever worked on. I think it's just the design is so good, the art is so good. So, that thing, us working on that led to us working on more He-Man stuff. And, now when Mattel was like, we're going to get the rights to Ninja Turtles and make He-Man figures, I was like, what? And then they said, can you write? I was like, what? So, I'm not going to turn down those two things together. Like, those are two of my favorite things on earth,
Absolutely, man. Well, yeah, and I guess, right, because this is coming from Dark Horse, mm-hmm. And I know the regular Turtle book is IDW and everything, but this is cool that, again, I'm glad that this is giving you that opportunity. And also, I know, again, you and Steve, that I've known for, 20 years now. And I, like a lot of kids, you were guys growing up where I'm sure your He-Man action figures were interacting with your Turtles back when you guys were kids as well, weren't you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and we're kind of that last era that had those, that action figures were so important to us in particular. But, Turtles was kind of the cap. It was like Master Universe was kind of the one end of it, and it's like gave rise to this sort of mass, action figure, that and G.I. Joe and Transformers. And then
sure,
Turtles and like Power Rangers is kind of the cap on the end, I guess, of that culture, kids buying action figures, Ben 10, I guess, too. And then after that, now it's just old guys like me buying action figures,
I sympathize though, Tim. A couple weeks ago, I had my buddy Rob Burnett on, and Rob's a big action figure and statue guy. And the tariffs are really going to screw with not only and not only do I feel for the consumers, but also all these companies. Like, I can't even remember the name of it, but I was telling Rob, I'm like, I think I read where the guys that make the prisoner action figures recently, like, they're screwed because all that stuff is being made in China. I
mean, I was doing a Kickstarter campaign with these guys, Fresh Monkey Fiction. They do like indie superhero figures, like in the superpowers scale.
Sure.
We had done a figure, an original, just cool toy one, collaborated on it. The character was called Holofire, and we did a Kickstarter. They did the whole thing. They were putting their heart and souls into this thing, and then the Kickstarter wasn't going to cover it after the tariffs passed, or were forced to be passed by he who should not be named. But that like ruined it. It was the end of the show. Like they're like, no matter how much we make on this Kickstarter, we can't do this. Because something people forget about action figures, generally speaking, is that the margin is really low. For when these were highly profitable, it was because they were making 400,000 copies of one toy or something, and then obviously the buck and the mole and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, well, and also Toys R Us, and the big box stores are like, yeah, we'll take several 100,000, yeah.
And now those things are 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, but much lower numbers, and so that the margin goes down quite a bit, and all of a sudden you've got this industry that survives, on being able to produce them for lower costs. And so like the tariffs are just destroying toys and board games. There are two things that you can't easily produce in the United States. You just can't do it, and at least for like a reasonable printing cost or production costs and stuff. So and that obviously that has its own set of moral quandaries, but it just means that you're just going to get a lot less stuff. And McFarlane Toys is feeling it, Mattel is feeling it, all those companies are feeling it.
Yeah, it's crazy, absolutely crazy, man. Dennis has a couple comments. First of all, he agrees and says it is an amazing time to be a Tim Seeley fan. I still have my Jack Kraken sketch from San Diego back in 2011. Shit, I'm old. No, you're not that old, Dennis. When you get to me, call me. Seriously, Tim, I'm so happy for all the well-earned success. Cross Jack lives. Wow, nice.
Usually people say fuck Cross Jack, so it's nice when he gets a little love. That's very lovely. So.
Well, and again, it reminds me of another thing that you are working on. And by the way, I'm happy to keep talking about.
Oh no,
He-Man.
Yeah. You tell me what to talk about, Johnny.
No, I realize that. Well, first of all, I will tease because much like Jack Kraken, I believe, was part of that double shot, double feature comic that doing back in the day. And here you are again in another double shot book that we will talk about, or another double feature book. And that is the Vigilante Eagly Peacemaker Black Label comedy. That's going on, and we'll get to that in a second. But no, we could stick with He-Man because there's a lot to talk about with this. It's a really fun story, and half of it takes place in He-Man's universe, and the other half takes place in the sewers in Manhattan.
Yeah. And it's the first time I've written Ninja Turtles, which also made me be like, wait, have I never written Ninja Turtles before?
Wow, Tim, I assumed you had, so that's fantastic for you.
Well, when I was a kid, there was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cereal in 1988 or 9, I think, and on the back of it was a contest to send in a comic for Ninja Turtles, and I drew this Ninja Turtles comic, and I put everything I had into it. Like the whole big thing was that Shredder got hold of mutagen, turned himself into a wolf monster, and all this shit like that. It was before I saw Taka and Razar, or what, and obviously everybody's done that in Ninja Turtles since then. But like in my head, for some reason, when I started working on this book, I was like, yeah, it's not my first time doing Ninja Turtles. Like, it is my first time doing Ninja Turtles. The comics you make as kids is not canon, Tim. It's not. It does not count.
That's fantastic, man. Jesus Christ. I also love yours and your brother's love of mini comics as well. And I, again, showing my age. By the way, Dennis, let me trump you by no pun intended by a couple decades. I remember the mini comics that came with the Aurora models.
Oh yeah.
And all those, man, even Superboy had an Aurora model and stuff. So yeah, I love that stuff, and of course He-Man, they had the mini comics and everything. Kind of started that whole.
What got me into comics was those mini comics because, where I lived in the country, it wasn't easy to find comics, but those action figures came with comics, which is kind of like right about the same time. I was getting into Spider-Man and Hulk and stuff, but that was that original sort of drive was those mini comics because they came with a plastic figure you could buy at Kmart, which you couldn't buy at the time comics at Kmart and stuff. So it's down like for a whole lot of us, there's a generation of people who got into comics because of Master of the Universe and because of G.I. Joe and Transformers, and those things are so closely tied to comics in that era. And then Ninja Turtles, even in a more like profound probably way for me, was that I got into Ninja Turtles before it was a toy line. Because I used to buy Comic Scene magazine and get like comic shop news and stuff, and they would show Ninja Turtles in there, and you were like, "What is this? It's animals, but they stab people," And so like it was like this, like a really early entry point for me for indie comics because it was a black and white book, and it came out, caused the black and white boom really.
Absolutely.
But when that stuff came out, like it was just like blew my mind that you could make these things and they were weird ideas and they didn't have superheroes in them, and there just was like this whole new world. So I think just how profoundly affected I was by Ninja Turtles too. And then back in the old, when I first started Hack Slash, one of the first crossovers we wanted to pitch was going to be Hack Slash versus Ninja Turtles because the rights were still owned by Mirage at the time, and they hadn't sold it to Nickelodeon. And so I was working on a Hack Slash pitch for that, and then it got bought by Nickelodeon. I was like, well, that's probably not going to happen. So.
These things happen, man. So, all right, and again, as someone slightly older, well, more than slightly older than you guys, let me. So, have you done? You've done He-Man now. You've done the Ninja Turtles. You've done G.I. Joe.
Yep.
So, in that '80s pantheon, have you done Transformers and or Thundercats?
Thundercats, no. Transformers, multiple times. Thundercats was the one I haven't worked on, which is kind of weird. And yeah, I know. I've never even drawn them. I don't think. Just like a poster for a convention once, I think. But like,
okay,
yeah. But yeah, all the other ones I've worked on extensively. Yeah, I got to find like a real weird, and even like the ones that I want to do, like the weird obscure ones, like Sectors or Power Lords. Like Oni is doing those now. So
yes,
so
yeah. Brian, my buddy Brian Volk-Weiss is behind all that and everything.
Yeah.
Bikers from Mars, all that crazy stuff, man. Absolutely. So, go ahead.
Power Lords was my favorite thing on earth besides He-Man when I was a kid. I loved Power Lords because they were so weird and they were scary and like they made other kids cry, and I just loved them. So yeah.
That's great, man. Absolutely. Would you ever want to do any of those other like Blastar, the other Filmation things?
Brave Star and
thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, I've looked into, at one point or another, I've looked in. It was either I or Steve Orlando has looked up the rights to everything that exists, or together, Steve Orlando and I looked up the rights for stuff. Brave Star, and like a lot of those. The value of them as sort of nostalgia maybe is not as much because they weren't big, but the designs on Power Lords is worth it alone, and Sectors and stuff like that stuff is just such cool, weird stuff that, I would do it just to do it. Like, I don't.
I hear you. No, I get it, man. That's, again, I understand. That was your generation of, Saturday morning and weekday afternoon cartoons and the like and toys. So I get all that. Absolutely.
I think the key for me also has always been like, it's not that I'm unaware that it's a nostalgia thing for me. A lot of it, right? Like, it's not like I'm like, no, it's always perfect. Go to hell. Like I know it was all built to sell plastic. Like I'm not, Like I'm not oblivious to any of this. I know some of the things that are goofy or problematic. I know all that stuff for all these things. Like it doesn't bother me at all. Like I like these beautiful, like weird, pure ideas that are just sort of there before everything was product tested and before they came up with a proper story for shit. They were just like, here's some toys and we'll figure out the story later, which is incredible. Like, you think of how if you launch something now, everything is so product tested, and like we've got to make sure we lock down the IP rights and all this sort of. And it's just like this weird, pure form because they really wanted the kids to play with the toys. Like you didn't need a story to be like, hey, here's this guy. He's got a laser gun and he's got a sword and ram them together. Like, you didn't need a story, right? So, but you could make a story,
Well, and they always got good pros to give the backstory for these toys. Don Glutt for Masters of the Universe, and Larry Hama when they came to him, for GI Joe and everything. I mean, so it's like it is good. And I get what you're saying, but also there was some thought. But no, you're right. I mean, literally, anytime I see a change in a superhero costume, I'm like, that's for a toy. They're making a toy. They're making a statue of that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's totally fine. And really, I mean, a couple weeks ago, I had, Snyder on to talk about him and Darrington's Absolute Batman. But as soon as I saw that design, I'm like, action figure, obviously. And everybody that collects Batman is going to have to get that and the statue and everything else. Yeah. And fine. And, I don't know who first explained to me the phrase toyetic.
Toyetic, yeah, for sure.
Well, again, Tim, I'm a student. You're a master. You're in this world and have been for a long time, man.
Yeah, I mean, but you also think about how much superheroes and those kind of stuff. The perfect thing about them is the object, the design, the form. It's on a page, and
sure,
obviously they get kind of polluted when you put them on screen because they got to have texture and all this sort of stuff. But the simple mass appeal form of them is all about that simplicity and the bright colors and the how it so. I think so much of my aesthetic comes from like, here's this distilled, beautiful object. It's a turtle. It's got an orange fucking headband on. You know what I mean? It's like so distilled and perfect and simple. This is like, that's what I love. Like, I love that kind of just little art objects that you can build a story around.
Also, it's great to see the different matchups you can do, like having Skeletor fight the Turtles. And vice versa, having He-Man suddenly, dealing with Shredder and those guys. Yeah, man.
I mean, that's the hardest thing about that book. It's only got 4 issues, and that was the length of the license. It's just, there's so much you could do, and trying to pare it down to something, that you try to hit all the things that everyone wants to see. But you also, I had to make it surprising, so it couldn't be like a direct adaptation of the toy version. And so, I think where we came down on it was kind of the right way to go. We had it, one of our shticks was like, we have to have a surprise villain. It can't be just Skeletor and Shredder. It's like, we have to have this other thing. So we came up with this character. Spoilers if you haven't read it, but he's on the cover. But that is a Master of the Universe character from the end of the line called Ninjor. When the Turtles had basically taken over Ninja and G.I. Joe, Ninja Fever had taken over the 80s kids, and so Master of the Universe added this figure called Ninjor, and he was a ninja, medieval fantasy, whatever, with weird demon feet, but he never got like really an origin or anything like that. So we took the opportunity with this book. Spoilers, by the way. So you find out the origin of Ninjor is essentially that he is a student of Shredder and Hamato Yoshi before they split up the Foot Clan. So. I can't believe people let us get away with that. It's like the secret origin of this character is that he trained with Shredder and, went to go get revenge on everybody who'd ever, slighted him.
Are both IPs? Well, again, the Turtles just got picked up by Mattel, and He-Man always was Mattel, right?
Well, so, and this is inside baseball, but I think it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, please.
Well, so the Turtles license, going way back to the 90s, late 80s, it was owned by Playmates at the time.
Okay, sure. I remember that.
That the most licenses are fairly tight. But for whatever reason, the license for Ninja Turtles is pretty loose. And so Playmates still makes figures, but so does everyone else. So NECA has a Turtles license. They have the film version. Hasbro... like every toy company you can think of has made a Ninja Turtles toy at some point. It's crossover toys, like they did a Street Fighter one with Turtles. And so at some point, I mean, I think McFarlane is making Ninja Turtles toys. Like everybody, you can make Ninja Turtles toys if you buy the license. So at some point, the guys at Mattel got real smart and were like, well, why don't we just buy the license for Turtles and we'll just fuse it with Master of the Universe? And that's Turtles of Grayskull. And so they owned the license for a Turtles thing, which was a crossover line, and it's theirs. They designed their own figures and everything like that. And then Freddie and I, Freddie did the, with a writer named Josh Skye, did the internal mini comics that came with those figures. And then we did the more, expanded version in this series. So, but it is a legit toy license. There's figures for all of this stuff. I have a bunch of them all over my office right now. so it's a real thing. You can go to Target and go buy some Turtles of Grayskull figures.
Now, you've got a young child, and I know obviously she's being indoctrinated in all this stuff.
Yes.
Do you have Valentina, the Contessa, as I like to call her, because I go back to the Shield, the Shield version of Valentina, not the Thunderbolts one. She's evil, or obviously some sort of anti-hero. We'll find out when we see the movie. But does Valentina have female action figures as well, and plays with you with your male action figures, or she doesn't care? She plays with all of them.
I mean, well, she did. We used to share. I mean, my rule on action figures is it's a toy. So even if it's mine, if she wants to play with it, she can play with it. That's the rule. The only rule is she has to put it back. It's a toy. It doesn't matter if it's daddy's. Doesn't matter if it costs $40 or $80 or $200. It's a toy. That's the deal. And so for when she was really little, she always played with my figures, and she was always really respectful. She always put them back. But so we used to play He-Man and Ninja Turtles, and we would have these big setups where we build castles and play with our guys and stuff. And she had a couple of her own He-Man figures that my parents got for her and stuff. But then she went to school and she saw kindergartners, and all of a sudden she was only into Disney princesses and girl stuff and Barbie. And
that's a good run. You had a good run.
Yeah, society got to her so quickly. She's still today she was wearing a He-Man slanket around the house, so it's not like it completely escaped. But yeah, it's so funny, just how because she just thinks every parents are like us, because all our friends, she goes to Ryan Brown's house and his Ryan's got his Ninja Turtles figures and Kirby's got his, and goes to our friend Anthony or Uncle Steve's house or our friend Sean. We're all nerds, so she just thinks this is how it is. She just thinks you go to a parent's house and they have action figures and you can play with their action figures too.
I love it. That's fantastic. Did you ever meet Lou Scheimer from Filmation?
We interviewed him and his daughter when we did the book.
That's great. And yeah. I know, was he, because sadly, I know at the end, Lou was really suffering from Alzheimer's. Yeah. I saw Andy Mangels interview him at San Diego, and God, it was a great panel. And
super. We interviewed Erica, his daughter, for the book very specifically. Amazing person, hilarious, just great stories.
Well, and again, man, listen, it's so funny, and it drives me nuts. Younger people see the animation from Filmation, or even the 50s and 60s Hanna-Barbera stuff. Oh, it's so cheap. Oh, it's what, and it's there was nothing as far as TV animation if it wasn't for these guys. And I always say the Hanna-Barbera story where they made, and forgive me, everybody, this is my simple math, but let's say they got a $90,000 budget to make a 7-minute Tom and Jerry cartoon when they were at MGM Studios in the movies, and they would be shorts, between movies. Then they were on their own, and they had $9,000 to make a 7-minute short. And right. That's literally the difference. And that's why you got the kind of continuous, background that every second and a half, suddenly you saw the same cactus and the same rocks behind, Fred and Barney or whomever was running.
Yeah, a rotoscope, yeah.
Yeah, essentially like a rotoscope. So yeah, and the same thing with Filmation and everything, and their shortcuts, including Lou Scheimer doing 50% of the voices for whatever cartoon he was doing, including, which would be inappropriate these days, but nobody cared back then, Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids. He was like half the Cosby Kids.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And Bill Cosby was the other half and everything. But no, honestly, I really have a lot of respect for those things. And my God, He-Man really was a game changer in the animation world because of its popularity.
When you think of the thing that's crazy about that stuff now is they would do 65 episodes a season. Like none of this 13 episode bullshit. Like they were doing 65 episodes. I mean, you even just think of the task at hand. It's crazy. It's just like, but it's just one of those things that we just don't do anymore. And so, yeah, I mean, I taught animation classes, and we would always watch old clips from Filmation stuff, and how it doesn't have any squash and stretch, and it's all traced, and it's sort of run cycles are all the same. But also, it was a half hour a day for a year. It's like no wonder.
No kidding, man. Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Henry says these kids today, they don't know. Absolutely.
Right. Well, I mean, and even worse kind of is just how little animation is usually done now because of how expensive animation is, and it's really hard to make your money back. So like, you don't see a lot of, you see some, but like you don't see a lot of American kid action shows or anything like that. They're really hard. They're really expensive, and you generally have to make them for really little kids. That's why you get like Bat Wheels or something.
Sure.
Or like for adults. Like there's sort of this weird lack of range in between. It's like Bluey, which is incredible, and then like something then
like Lazarus on Cartoon Network right now on Saturday nights. One of their new animes and stuff.
Yeah.
Although it's not an American product, but I'm with you. No, that's true. And then really think, hey man, I was so happy. I remember being at that Wizard Chicago when Paul Levitz announced those first direct-to-DVD DC animated movies.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, we're going to get the Judas contract? Well, eventually, whatever.
Yeah.
But it really, like, you go back to, like, Superman versus Doomsday. I think that was one of the first ones. And it really was, PG. But now, my God, we're getting Watchmen. And we're getting, pretty close, pretty intense. I mean, we're not, even better example, what James Gunn's doing with Creature Commandos. I mean, that's an R-rated cartoon, an American R-rated cartoon.
Yeah. There's just not much of them because it's hard to do, and it's hard to get the audience and hard to get the executives to okay it. And, it's tough.
That's, Tim, that's another thing that literally just occurred to me as I said that, how much Asian animation as far as the production end is happening, and how will that impact the animation business?
Yeah, I mean, we're in such a weird spot too because the tariffs and that kind of stuff hasn't affected print yet because there's a law on the books that basically makes it illegal to tariff print stuff. So, I mean, but right now the reason you're not hearing anything about it is because it's too small potatoes for them to go after it, right? Like, so compared to trucks and cars and shit like that, that's just nothing, So
wait, so graphic novels won't be impacted by the tariffs?
Not now. No, I mean, I think that the guy in charge would go after them just to punish us? Yeah, but generally speaking, I didn't know this, but I had to do a bunch of research.
Yeah, because I've honestly been asking a lot of my, Palmiotti and Bendis and Oming and a lot of people, how's this going to impact you guys when you're doing your creator-owned books? Yeah,
so far the tariffs do not affect printed products. I mean, there's part that you're seeing that's hurting people is merch and the figures, games, but books, periodicals, that stuff has not been part of this yet. Based on how unpopular tariffs are, I have a feeling that we won't get there, but don't quote me on that. I mean, it's just so incredibly unpopular and so unfunctional, that. But yeah, there was definitely the ones I wasn't worried about the mass stuff because like, the stuff that Marvel and DC prints, you can do China or Canada, but you're doing so many and you're doing the way that you're setting that stuff up. I was worried about Kickstarter books and people printing smaller.
Yeah, even that's why I'm talking about the creator-owned books and everything. Yeah. Sure,
but so far it's not part of the deal. So
all right,
we'll see. I mean,
yes, yeah. Dennis, Tim, I wish I had known this. I would have read it. Your Injustice versus Masters of the Universe series. We did talk about it, but he said when He-Man got the powers of Shazam, it knocked me off my chair. So great. So was He-Man in the Captain Marvel suit?
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, and that one was a meta because the reason that the story of He-Man became it's a prince who is struck by lightning and becomes a hero is because the editor at the time was Paul Kupperberg, and he was also editing Shazam, and so he was like, yeah, we use that story. and so I was like, yeah, I got to make an homage to that. So when we had, Shazam, Captain Marvel show up, hey, kiddo, you going to good night.
Hi, Valentina.
Say hi to Johnny and everybody else. Where are you?
Where is everybody else?
Where is everybody else? Just Johnny.
In the camera. Yeah. You're behind me, sweetie. Good to see you.
Yeah. Say good night.
Good night.
All right,
good
bye.
night, sweetie. Good seeing you. There she is, the Contessa. Makes an appearance.
But yeah, so I had to, when I was putting together this thing with Justice, like, this is the thing I have to get to. He-Man has to become Captain Marvel, Shazam, and Skeletor has to become Black Adam. It's like anything else that happens, whatever. But I was like, I aimed it towards this, and I had it like, so He-Man gets depowered, and he can't beat Superman, but Superman is bonded with Brainiac, so he's more vulnerable to magic than ever before. So I aimed all that shit at that stuff.
That's fantastic, man.
Yeah.
Jesus, I got to see if I can get that in the DC archives that they are very kind to give me access to. That's great. Well, while we're mentioning DC, we may as well get to the double feature book that Tim is in.
Yeah.
Peacemaker presents Vigilante and Eagly, the double feature. Tim is doing the Vigilante portion of the book. I'm fascinated by this new take on Vigilante. I was a big fan of the 80s, version. And I always give it up to both Kupperberg and Levitz for allowing, it would never happen today. But the way Adrian Chase goes out, he kills himself, as you know. Exactly, man. God damn, even the cover had Vigilante aiming the gun at his mirror reflection. And it's, and really, man, it was, I don't even know what the original motivation was. I would assume it was kind of a Punisher.
It was Bernie Getz. Bernie Getz. It was Bernie Getz as a superhero. That was the
idea. That's even better. You're right, Bernie Getz from the New York shootings back in the 80s. Absolutely, man. Good call. Because I always kind of thought, combination of Daredevil and Punisher, where Adrian Chase being a judge and the system fails and everything, so therefore I'll become a vigilante, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then his extreme violence again to me leaned towards Frank Castle and everything,
Yeah.
So this guy though, very different. Tell me about this vigilante.
It's the weirdest James Gunn idea ever, I think. Because when I saw it, I was like, this is the one, you have to let me do this. But James' take on Vigilante is very closely aligned with his version of Peacemaker, which, I think there was an issue of Vigilante where Peacemaker shows up.
There was.
James must have looked at the pile of things that they had the rights to that were connected peripherally. And he saw that issue and he's like, Vigilante is part of Peacemaker, sweet. And then he did a version that is completely unrelated, and I think personally better. But his version was Vigilante is a neighbor or sort of townie in the same place, Evergreen, which is maybe in Oregon or maybe in Washington, and he is a busboy, and he is insane, and he fights crime in this town, of which it has very little crime, really. And he's just he's a complete and utter psychopath, except he loves Peacemaker. And he thinks they're best friends. And so he's like this weird, I don't know, Jeffrey Dahmer by way of some kind of weird rural. It's one of the greatest creations I've ever encountered. And Freddie Stroma plays him, and he just does this incredible job because somehow Vigilante is likable, even though he's just a mess of a human being and almost completely irredeemable in a way, the way that they play him. But so the original Vigilante, which I like that series for, I think it's really well crafted. I also think it's insane. It's that Marv Wolfman was like, let's do Bernie Getz as a comic book character, a touch point cultural moment of the 80s, which was, this sort of conservatives, we can fight back and kill people and mess with us and all this sort of shit. And Marv was like, let's make him a superhero. And then he was so popular, he got his own book, which he was never meant to be the antagonist, right? He was a protagonist. He was meant to be an antagonist. So they do the series, and it's incredible. It's a really great book, and it ends shockingly. What I do know for sure is I would never be the guy to write that book. Never in a million years. But like when I saw James' version, and there's a moment that did it for me, which was, when his vigilante finds out that someone is racist, he's just like, he goes out of his mind. He's like this super hyper liberal, and he's like so mad about racism, but he's an absolute psychopath murderer. And I thought that was such a beautiful contradiction of everything. So when I saw that episode, like the next day, I emailed Katie Kubert at DC, and it was just like, I don't know if you guys are doing anything with this version of Vigilante, but I feel like I was born to write this. So I'm throwing my name in. If you can do anything with it, whatever you want to do. And she said, that's interesting. We're having conversations. We're trying to figure out how to do it. And she said, we've had talks about, doing something with maybe like, Eagly having a one-shot or something. And she was like, but we're not really sure how to do it. And she's like, well, if we could get a hold of James Gunn and get him behind it, we would do this. And I was like, wait, I kind of know him, but not really, but kind of, but a little. And so I pestered him until they let us do this series, basically, is what it was.
Wow. Well, and how do you know James?
From Trauma, from back in the day, because he was he had done Romeo and Juliet, which I loved. I was in college when that came out, and I thought it was just profound. I thought it was one of the best things I've ever seen. And then when I started Devil's Due, we got the rights to do. I was working for Trauma, so we got the rights to do a Toxic Avenger comic, and so I emailed James at the time to do Romeo and Juliet. So I knew who he was, and he was just starting. He had just done the specials, I think. That was when he had just done the
first superhero thing. Yeah.
And then when Hack Slash, we sold the rights to Hack Slash. They basically were like, well, who do you think should write and direct this? And I said James Gunn. He just did this movie called Splinter. It's genius. He wrote Scooby-Doo. He's the perfect guy to do this. And they were like, Scooby-Doo? No. So they missed out. That was their fault. Whatever executive kiboshed that one. So there you go.
Wow, that's amazing. Always comes back to Lloyd Kaufman, everybody, the king of trauma. Isn't it? And as a horror fan yourself, and we're going to get to Hack Slash a little, near the end of the conversation. But man, I was so bummed when Corman died, and I really thought about it. And I know that our buddy Matt Klickstein is in the midst of putting out that.
The book.
The book with all the interviews with Lloyd over the years. But yeah, Lloyd's kind of the last of the great independent horror guys.
Yeah, and he'll outlive us all. He will be around, and it'll be Lloyd and cockroaches.
like that Hulk the end.
Yeah,
I think Peter David wrote it and everything. And
Lloyd Kaufman at the very end. It's just him and cockroaches, and he's complaining about mainstream films. That's the.
I hear you. Jeremy Hahn is watching us and says, it's good to see you, Jer. Absolutely. Everybody, Murder Podcast. There's probably still time left to support that Kickstarter. I don't mind because he was on last week. We talked about that.
The great Ignition Press man. Yes.
Absolutely. Very Dennis also wants to know if that's a Youngblood poster in the background. Lockman feels like such a love letter Local Man. I thought he was talking about Whitey Lockman, the former Cub manager. Local Man feels like such a love letter from two dudes who loved extreme, awesome comics and Vertigo.
Not only is that a Youngblood poster, that is a Youngblood poster from before it was Image. You see there's the Malibu logo right there.
Wow, nice.
It is legit pre-Image a Youngblood poster, and I wanted that thing forever. It was one of those things I was like, the moment I can get this goddamn thing, I'm going to buy it, and then I framed it up and put it on my wall. So yes, it is legit, and it is a genuine affection for that era of comics.
That's cool. Also behind you, I see the Money Shot poster, which is great.
Yes, I tried. So when I was teaching during the pandemic, I realized every day I was in front of students, and I was like, why don't I advertise to these people? So I put stuff behind me. We have right behind me. Here's the Money Shot. That's a Little Shot action figure.
Hold on, I'm going back again. All right, there we go.
So there's a Little Shot, right? The statue right there.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, and then we've got Dark Red poster above me here, right here, Dark Red.
Is that the blonde?
Yep, that's from the Nazi vampire lady. And then over here we have the poster for Rogue Savage Land. I got one from Marvel. I hung that
Oh
up.
wow! All right, we're going to talk about Rogue Savage Land, but keep going.
My Glenn Danzig action figure right there.
Hilarious, fantastic. There you go, everybody. I've been in the office. It's very impressive. It's funny. Tim is in my dad's neighborhood where my dad's restaurant was forever. It is now a Giordano's Pizzeria. But yeah, man, I grew up there. And then seriously, the first time I visited Tim, I'm like, "Where are you?" I'm like, "Wait a minute." And as I'm driving to Tim's, like, "Oh my God!" Literally from like, yeah, as far back as I can remember, 2 till like 10, I was, walking through that park that I'm sure Tim and his wife have taken Valentina through. And,
Every goddamn day. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. No, and thank God we're getting warm again, so you can take her back and everything. It's going to be nice again. So yeah, Portage Park, great neighborhood, man. Absolutely.
Very happy to hang my shit here.
That's excellent. Absolutely. Let's see. Here, hold on. Let's see. I'm going to go back to, because we're just mentioning the Savage Land, and of course Rogue and the Savage Land. Fantastic series. Is this also a mini, Tim, or is this okay?
5 issues.
5 issues. Okay, and I know 4 of them have come out so far.
Right, 4 is out this week, I think. Right?
Yes. Or last week, and I know, or no, it is this week. 4 is this week. Tomorrow, everybody, on the 30th, and then the last issue will be at the end of May. Fun series, man, and I always love, like, it's a great idea to drop Logan, Magneto into the Savage Land, and there's Kazar, and there's Shauna, the She-Devil, and all these great Savage Land characters, and yeah, these 2 fish out of water have to kind of make it through the Savage Land.
Yeah, one of my favorite gigs I've ever been offered, because when they asked me about it, they're like, I don't know, yeah, the Rogue Savage Land stuff is so popular still, the covers always sell, and then they were like, I don't know, we're thinking about doing a series, and I was like, yes, for sure, yes, and they're like, really? Like, yes, no, please, I have an idea already. So, because I grew up on that stuff. That was some of my earliest X-Men books that weren't classic X-Men. When I was a kid, they had putting out classic X-Men, so you could get, it was the Cockrum, the Claremont stuff. Sure. It started like from their first issue, like all the way, and it was reprinting all that stuff. So that was the X-Men stuff I was reading, because the modern X-Men stuff scared the shit out of me. It was Claremont and Silvestri, and it was like, it was like had the eye killers, and Forge was all skinny and weird, and like it looked creepy to me, which I think is funny now that I know Mark, and it's he's like the least creepy person who's ever lived. But the book scared me, But then when Jim Lee came on, for some reason it seemed less scary, and then it was like dinosaurs and babes in bikinis. I was like, well, give me that shit. So that was like some of my earliest, modern X-Men stuff. So, getting to write Rogue for me was, I don't have to do any research. I knew all the stuff. I was like, I know exactly what happens, because ours essentially dances between the raindrops of like 269 and 274, basically. But there was so much, Claremont would write an issue and it would have like 8 pages of one subplot. But there would be like 12 issues worth of stuff in there, right? Like, and the Rogue segment of 269 is like, I don't know, 9 pages or something like that. And then there's a little bit of it in 274, and there's a little bit in 275. So it was just fragments of 3 issues, and it was so impactful, obviously, that we're still talking about it. But so I was like, Chris laid a million miles of track between there. Like, let's just walk some of it. So that's kind of how we approached it. And, there's all these relationships that if Chris had time, I'm sure he would have explored. So we're like, well, we're going to do it for you. And treat it like in every way and sincere. Like, yes, she's in a bikini, but it's not just a bikini story. Like, it is full of, real emotional scenes and connections between her and Magneto. And I did my best to give like 5 cool scenes to Kazar and Zabu. Like, I was just like, I love those guys. I'm going to make them fucking cool. Like I was going to do all the things I can do with this. So
yeah. No, and by the way, I love the fact that I call him Kazar, you call him Kazar. I know people that call him Kazar, and it's like, it's so funny. Oh God damn it, the guy who used to do the Mad Fold-In back covers.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
It's right. The chat, help me out, everybody. But the original artist at the Society of Illustrators, they had a great presentation with him and Blake Bell, who does the history, did all those histories of Marvel, and the artist was doing the covers and a lot of the interior illustrations of a lot of the Marvel pulp stuff. And the original version of Kazar was pre-comics, like 1935 and everything.
Yeah.
So I mean, he predates Superman, really, which I love. And I mean, I'm a big fan. And I mean, you'll forgive me, I didn't realize that this mini is kind of takes place in the past of X-Men's continuity.
Yeah.
And then within that period that you just described, again, this is the X-Men history is my kryptonite. It always has been.
Well,
so, but yeah.
Though, I mean, if you're gonna have one thing that's impossible to keep up with, X-Men. I mean, that is it's like, yeah.
Well, by the way, B Things is going. Are we talking about Quasar? I've heard Kazar said that way before too. Yeah, no, you know what I'm saying. B.
Yeah, Quasar.
Yeah. I think I hear Quasar. I think of TVs by Motorola, based in the '80s. Quasar.
That's right.
So in that Quasar's who Marvel Boy became, correct?
Right, he's the guy with the quantum bands.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and of course used very well in the Agents of Atlas.
There, yeah.
Yeah, I loved out what Parker did with him in Agents of Atlas and everything, and made him even more alien, which I thought was pretty cool. Yeah, man. No, absolutely. And we're talking about Kazar, the Lord of the Savage Lands.
Lord of the Savage, Lord of the Hidden Jungle. Just because that is so cool. I was like, we're definitely going to call him Lord of the Hidden Jungle. Lord of the Savage, like, fuck that. Lord of the Hidden Jungle, bro. That is stuff. So, yeah. But
no, it's great, man. And I wish somebody had the balls to really adapt your story, because it is a little lengthier than what Claremont did, apparently, back in the day. And absolutely make, a great kind of classic, chicks in the jungle and guys in the jungle and stuff. And loincloths abound. Sure.
I mean, I think that was the key too, is that, we definitely didn't approach this like, well, we're covering them up or anything. Like, no, they're half naked. It's important to the plot. But like, it's a survival story to some degree. But there was a lot of nuggets that Chris had left in there that, like this war in the Savage Land, as sort of resources dwindled and all. So I was like, holy shit, I want to see that, because obviously, like in the old Kazar series, like, there was all this world building they did, and all these different tribes and all this sort of shit, So I did my best to use every bit of it that I could remember. So, the ape men and the pterodon men and pterons and the monkey dudes, the tree people from Botor. I tried to do everything I could remember from those books and just try to like treat it with utter sincerity, like not. Because I think there's a tendency to just make fun of shit, which is easy, But like, what if you had to treat it like with the emotional weight that it was intended to be? So that's what I try to do. Even it's funny, but still, it's like very sincere. And the funny thing with the book is, I think a lot of people thought it was going to be something it isn't. So, because I had people very mad at me when the book came out, or when it was announced anyway. And then they read it and they're like, oh. Well, I thought you were to be a dick. It's like, no, I'm just, I'm trying to just do a good comic story with hot people.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that, man.
Nothing wrong.
They're not very well. No, I'm going to say no. They really weren't very hot. A couple weeks ago on Turner Classic Movies on a Friday night, and I don't know if you've seen this Doug McClure movie, The Land That Time Forgot.
Have I seen the McClure movie? Time of yes, of course, I've seen that film.
And the sequel with Patrick Wayne.
I mean, it has the psychic fucking pterodactyls and shit in it, and they're super weird. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, when I was a kid, that kind of shit, like Land of Time for God, and any sort of like land with dinosaurs and monsters, which is why He-Man, when it came out, was so appealing. I love that shit. So, like, my genuine affection for a hidden jungle. With dinosaurs and fucking psychic pterodactyls and shit. Like, oh, yes, I was going to go all in on that.
That's great, man. No, it's fantastic. Ange wanted to know if you had your choice of artists for it.
I did, because I picked Zalema, who I worked with on on the book Hexware at Image. So, and it actually kind of worked out great because she had just won a talent contest that CB had curated in Italy. And so, they were going through some talent, and I said, well, I would love to work with Zalema. And Darren was like, you're in luck. She just won this contest like yesterday. So so it worked out really well. I got to work with Zalema, who I knew, that she would do beautiful people, but that she would really make it emotive and like not stiff. It would be really like lush and verdant and wild. And she just did all that shit. I'm really happy with what she did with it. And she made both Khazar and Magneto hot too, which I thought was important.
Yeah,
definitely be hot, So
no, I respect that absolutely, man. Now, sorry everybody, what I have is the cover that Kari Andrews did.
Yeah, which are also awesome.
Yeah, they are. I'm talking to Kari sooner than later. He and Guggenheim have Spider-Man Wolverine coming soon from Marvel.
Oh yeah,
that's awesome. We'll be talking about that. Yeah, it was really sweet. Guggenheim's like, hey, you want to talk about this? I'm like, yeah, man. And also, it's like I got ESP every now and then because I'll think about a creator and then all of a sudden, they'll contact me or I'll read a notice and go, oh, you look at that. Look at what's coming up. So, no, I've been meaning to talk to Guggenheim for like months.
You just sense it through the air. That's your radio powers.
Yep. And yes, be things. I agree with you, man. Everyone deserves to be hot. Absolutely, man. I quite agree. Go ahead. What do we? Yes, indeed. Well, Tim, you're immortal. Tim, we've known each other 20 years. You still look the same like you did 20 years ago.
I've got white in there. I've got.
All right. So the beard hides the chins. You see?
A little bit in there.
All right. Oh, a little gray. That's all right. Yeah, it's flattering. Don't worry. That's what people told me about my temples. Like, you got Reed Richards temples. I'm like, yes, I do.
Yeah, I would like Reed Richards temples. That'd be awesome.
It's excellent, man. All right. Well, on the subject of dinosaurs, of course, we got to talk about one of the issues of IDW with Godzilla hitting all these major cities.
Yeah,
and Godzilla versus Chicago. Man, not only you, but Brownie is in there. And speaking of Brownie, I love it. Not only everybody is that an L train, but that is the Brown line.
That is the Brown line.
Because that is the Kimball.
Yeah, that's Kimball. In the story, I did the blue line because it ended up fitting the story better. But I had drawn the cover first, and I used to live on the Brown line, so really close to the Kimball, stop, the tunnel, the terminus. And so, yeah.
We used to eat by that restaurant they used to live near and everything.
Yeah, the Rockwell Cafe. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. So yeah, that's great. I'm really glad you and Brownie got to do stories for this. I talked to Gabe about the LA book,
Oh yeah,
cool. But so yeah, tell people some of the landmarks and celebrities that are in this story.
I mean, the tough things at 10 pages. You got to do Godzilla's story also. But I was like, what is the most Chicago thing I could pitch them? And my first pitch was going to be that it had snowed, and a guy shovels his driveway, and Godzilla stomps over his parking spot. And so he grabs his shovel and he hunts Godzilla down. That was my original pitch.
Hilarious.
And they liked it, but they were like, the Toho guys aren't quite sure they get the joke. Do you have a different one? So then I pitched the blue line signs, which was, the other thing that I could think of that felt the most Chicago is the L. And so
elevated trains, everybody, like the subway, but as they say, it's elevated, so it's above the streets.
Yeah. And so the pitch on it was, Godzilla attacks, and this people are on the train, and they have to get this. The L has to get underground before Godzilla, who is using them as a shield from military helicopters. So they're trying to get the train to go underground, and then Godzilla can't use them anymore.
Oh, yeah.
So it takes place on the blue line, going towards O'Hare from downtown. My character picks it up outside of Columbia College down on Jefferson, and then has to take it all the way up to survive before. In the meantime, she wants to talk to a dude, but she's really shy, and so she's counting the train stops, which and then Godzilla shows up. So, but it was when they had mentioned they were going to do this Godzilla thing, and they were like, "Yeah, we're doing a Chicago one." It's like, if you do not hire me for this, I will never forgive you. Because there's not too many things I like more than He-Man or Spider-Man or something. But one of them is Chicago. So, so I was like, I have to do this.
That's great, man. No, and I'm glad Brownie has a story in there too. So that's cool. 4 stories or 3 stories in that issue?
There's 4. Caroline Cash has one, and I'm gonna forget his name, and I feel real bad about it. But there's 4 stories, and they're all really different styles and really cool, impressive stuff. Like I was delighted to get to be in this. And I think and it ended up being like a sort of real world news too, because when it came out, Chicagoans, they love when you either destroy or defend Chicago, like one of, and if you do both, they're really excited. So like we did an art show, and it was like this huge event, and it was awesome. It was crazy.
That's great. Also Svengoolie is in the story, and at least one of the stories, if not your story, Brownie's story.
Yeah, Brownie's story. Yeah, he's called Fangoolie. It's an homage, and he's it's kind of a combination of that. And Ryan's story is like a guy who kind of screws up a thing for the Bears, basically. Screws up the game for them, becomes hated, based on a real story, but I don't know anything about sports, but Brownie does. And so that's his story. It's kind of a sports thing. And then Caroline's was just like the most Caroline Cash story. And the other one was about like corruption and stuff. It was great. Really good stuff.
I didn't realize that, and it's cool that Toho is involved with the licensing and not Legendary. No disrespect to Legendary, everybody. I've said this before. I was even telling Kelly Sue, because Fraction, of course, did the Monarch series, which is part of the Legendary Godzilla story and everything. Which, by the way, as everyone knows, I loved, and I was relieved, because I got to be honest, I'm just not a Legendary Godzilla guy, but I do love the Toho's. Because of hosts like Svengoolie, grew up on all that stuff.
Yeah.
On the 3:30 movie, they would have Godzilla Week. Not even Svengoolie on the ABC affiliate. You'd be watching Svengoolie movies in the 70s, or rather Godzilla movies in the 70s. I wish.
There's also Godzilla is so popular here. There's so many people grew up on them being shown on,
all the monster, like, well, not only the monster, but the UHF channels and 30 movie and all that. Well, it's to the point where G-Fest, the Godzilla con is every year. Yeah, Jimmy the Muscle, Art Baltazar's good friend. He goes every year. Are you going to take that to G-Fest this year?
Well, we were working on it. We missed the deadline.
I'm sorry, buddy.
We were going to do G-Fest, but I think I might just go as a fan and go blow some money. But yeah, and that part of the connection with Chicago too, just that it was such a monster town, like that it has this huge, like built-in audience for these things because everybody grew up on it. But IW has the original Toho license. Toho has also sold the license to Legendary to make those WB films, the Warner Brothers. And they have their own universe, and it's kind of Americanized. It combines it with King Kong and and then this one is the original is the rights that we have. So we had to send it to Toho, and they were awesome and wonderful people. And they would, like, hilariously, like, sometimes they'd be like, "Yeah, we don't know the reference there." Like, I heard one of them was like, "We don't know why Chicagoans hate Indiana, but okay."
Hilarious.
That was funny.
That's excellent. Yeah, man. Jesus. No, that's fantastic. I texted Svengoolie before our interview, and I'm like, "Hey, man, I wish I had known," because I did Sven's panel, at C2E2. And I'm like, "Oh, if I had known, I absolutely would have brought it up." And he actually, while we were talking, I checked my phone. He texted me back, and he's like, "I didn't know either." He goes, "The fan actually told me well after the fact." He goes, "But it's cool." And, he's Rich is such a massive comic book fan. So anytime, he has a cameo in a comic, or Christ, Dio, put him in a Justice League adventure.
Right.
So, yeah. No, it's that's great, man. So, no, that's cool. And I'm glad you had that experience and everything. So that's fantastic. So, Dennis, I don't know if Tim knows the answer to how did the ongoing Godzilla series come to be.
The one I'm working on now? Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize you were working. So you're working on the IDW book as well?
Yeah, the new one.
Tell me.
3 books. There's The Wasteland, and there is Starship Godzilla. And I'm doing the flagship Godzilla. It's the main series. Writing that.
Tim, I didn't realize, man. That's great.
Yeah, the Free Comic Book Day is the debut of the 0 issue. That's free. You can get that. Introduces our new take on Godzilla. It's a completely sort of new sort of version of it, different take than you've probably seen before. But I'm writing that book. All 3 books are linked. It's awesome. So I got that book because when I did the Godzilla versus Chicago, the editor I was working with, this dude Jake, awesome editor, but like really hands-on and like likes to work together, which I love. Like, you know, in comics you can have the situation where you turn something in and you don't really hear anything about it, and you know, or you can have something where you like jam with people, and when I can, I can jam. So Jake and I really jammed on stuff. So then when they had this new series come up, he had pitched me. He's like, "Do you have any opinions on doing essentially like a superheroes versus Godzilla thing?" I was like, "Yes, I do." And I'm like you. I grew up on that stuff. You know, the Toho stuff when I was a kid. Not on TV, but when we were kids, the local video store had a rack of kids movies for free, basically, and the Godzilla movies were on there. Whether you know they're all kids movies or not is up to interpretation. But so like we would watch, you know, we just watch those movies, and then for me they're like comfort food. Like when I first got out of college, I had no money. I was living in Minneapolis. I would go to the video store, and they had that same rack of free Godzilla movies. And though I was an adult man, I would be like, I'll take 2 Godzilla movies every time, you know. So I was just watching those things like as a comfort, you know, after all the, you know, just stress of getting out of school, like go home and watch Godzilla stomp on Gigan and stuff. I was just like, oh, this is so great. So, you know, when he said, hey, we were looking for a take on Godzilla, I was like, I have a version of this. I have something sitting in my head that we can work on. We worked on it together, and yeah, it comes out I think in July is the first issue, but you can get this free comic book day version. It really sets up the idea, and it's a crazy idea. It's super crazy. I think. And you know,
Godzilla meets superheroes.
I mean, kind of. So
I mean, like, and you'll forgive me, but immediately I think of some of the like Jet Jaguar being in the Toho movies, you know.
Jet Jaguar is absolutely in this comic. Yes, I mean, 100%. But in our story, Jet Jaguar has not been updated since the early '90s, and so he's kind of a mess, and he can only speak in his theme song, which they updated in the '90s. So, but yeah, so Jet Jaguar's in it. It's got like, so our pitch on this is essentially it's a world where they have been getting attacked by Godzilla since 1954 when Godzilla debuted.
Yes.
And so it is now 2025, but the world is profoundly affected by, like, it changed
years of Godzilla.
Yeah, it changed the politics. It changed the borders of countries. Like, you know.
Great idea. Yeah.
So our world is essentially that, and we follow in our story this kid who he's a G mutant, which is people who have been mutated by exposure to Godzilla, and he gets basically forced to join the American G-Force team, and the American G-Force team is full of complete, like the Japanese G-Force team. They're like, when Godzilla attacks, everybody be chill. Let's guide him back to the sea. You know, like we know how to deal with it. You know, like don't antagonize Godzilla. Like then. And then the American team is like, let's fucking kill him, you know?
Of course.
So it follows
absolutely, man. That's what we do. Absolutely. Fuck
right,
things up.
Team of American Godzilla fighters. And their base is it's all the aircraft carriers that Godzilla's destroyed. They stacked them on top of each other. Yeah, it's a crazy book, but it's awesome. I'm really happy with it. If you're like a fan of Godzilla, this have everything. Everything counts. It's sort of like Grant Morrison's take on, you know, Batman or Superman. It's like everything happened. Every version of this you've ever seen, that counts. It all counts.
That's great. Dennis says really love the creative teams for all the books, and says Nicola is incredible.
Yeah, he's the artist on the flagship book. Just incredible. Like doing this sort of, one of our touch points was to make it, you know, kind of a combination of like a you know, a boys manga fight comic and a, you know, like the Ultimates or Authority. It's just like all these things combined into being one crazy comic. So I think people will dig it.
John says, Tim, loved your story in Godzilla vs. Chicago. So glad you're handling the ongoing. Yeah. Thank you, John. There's an Art Baltazar fan. Very cool. And you kind of answered this, I think. Dennis wanted to know, he says the book sounds incredible. Nicole is such an amazing artist. Are you working with Ethan/Griffin and AKA the Supple Boys and Sophie on their books?
Yeah, the Supple Boys are writing the Dead Zone book, which is the sort of like post-apocalyptic. It's in the same universe, but I don't want to give away too much about it. It's awesome. It's sort of one of our takes on this is then also that at one point Godzilla appeared in the middle of America and wrecked it. And so there's this whole area that is just kind of, you can't go there. It's called the Dead Zone. And so their story is like a post-apocalyptic, like the Road Warrior with Godzilla, with Kaiju kind of.
Sure.
So that's the Supple Boys. And then the other story is like a cosmic, some space pirates steal Mecha Godzilla and pilot it to space. So it's awesome. But it's also tied together. So they're all, it's full of youthful energy, which I love because I'm the old guy on this one. All the creators are youthful. The Supple Boys and Nicola, they're all like bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and I got my gray hairs and stuff. But so we're doing something, and this is all Jake Williams, like just coming into something and saying like, let's do whatever we can, like just get weird with it and be enthusiastic and like come at it from a million different angles that you haven't seen before.
That's great, man. Well, I remember when Dave Wachter was doing Godzilla and everything. So I'm always happy when a Chicago creator gets a crack at Godzilla. So that's excellent. That's very, very cool. All right, I'm looking at what else because again, there's so much that Tim has got going. All right, so we did Godzilla. We haven't done. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen, from Dynamite.
Oh yeah,
Red Sonja and the Army of Darkness. Absolutely. First of all, beautiful cover, man. I love that.
I don't know. But it's really nice. Yeah, that comes out tomorrow. That one's out tomorrow, April 30th. So
that's great. Tell us what you can about the story.
It is me and Jim Terry. So fresh off doing Deathstalker together, we just loved doing like a gritty fantasy thing. So Dynamite asked us to pitch this one. It's Army of Darkness. Essentially, the story is Ash. After the events of the films, wants to see Sheila again. He's lonely. He's not getting laid. And so he brings out the Necronomicon. He intends to send himself back to medieval times, but he goes 10,000 years farther and ends up in the Hyborian Age. And so...
By Crumb.
Yeah, right. So he's stomping around and ends up, messing all this shit up and unleashes a bunch of Deadites on Hyboria. And, of course, poor Red Sonja gets hired to clear out a bunch of dead stuff. And they're alive, and so they get stuff together. That's the first 10 pages, and then after that it goes way sideways. Kulan Gath is the main bad guy in it, but it's also like one of the things Jim and I talked about from the beginning is like, let's do a different thing than we usually do, and so it's a lot of our thing, but also it's not, because by the end you're like, oh, that went in a different direction than I expected. But it's really fun. They let us do anything. I mean, another character I can't believe. I've written Ash a bunch of times, but I was like, wait, I've never written Red Sonja? Wait, that can't be true. Like, nope, this is my first time. I've drawn her a bunch of times, but so this was, I really wanted to do this sort of like, it didn't make sense to have Ash go back to a very realistic looking medieval era because we've already seen that. But I was like, remember the crazy ass Frank Thorne, issues of Red Sonja where it's all like lush and everything was pink and squishy and everybody was gross and like, let's do that version. And so it's like this really high fantasy looking take on it, and Jim is kind of unleashed on it. But and of course, I mean, the whole thing is just Sonja she needs Ash because he knows how to use the Necronomicon sort of.
Right.
But he's an idiot. And she's just like, oh my God, I wish I could kill this man. Like it's so, but they're stuck together and on this big adventure. So, and that one's 5 issues too.
Okay. That's great, man. Well, I'm going to have to bug Jim and have him come back and talk about this as well. That's really cool. Who did the painted cover?
I don't know the name of that one. It's real nice though. It's really good.
I went to the website, and this is what popped up, everybody. So, and did you do a variant of this or the Rogue stuff?
I did a cover for every issue, all 5.
That's great, man. All right, excellent. Yeah, I couldn't find your variant, unfortunately, or I would have put that up. So
that one's good. Yeah, I did one. I did my, like I said, I did my riff, like my 70s Marvel fantasy riff. Just had a ton of fun, and big old squishy plants with teeth on them and shit everywhere. Yeah, it's fun. So
honestly, Tim, those 70s like black and whites were so great. Those magazines. I love that stuff. I was and really, and again, I was still an adolescent, but I really felt like, oh, this is grown up comics, man. I had the Rampaging Hulk black and whites.
Oh yeah,
Black Savage, and a lot of the Conan stuff. So yeah, anytime I come across that stuff, I'm like, oh, I miss that. I've talked many times with Zub about his run on Conan. He's doing it. He's so killing it.
Yeah, that's in the way that I was born for Masters of the Universe. Zub was born for Conan. That's the And I had a similar experience with that stuff because my dad would buy comics every once in a while, but he would buy the adult comics, which would be Savage Sword of Conan, which was the magazine, and Vampirella and stuff. And it was always that, Nestor Redondo and John Buscema, inked by Alfredo Alcala, and like all this just really, like all those Filipino artists and stuff, and beautiful stuff. And I kind of wanted, when we started Deathstalker, I had so much fun with Deathstalker because we were kind of doing a riff on that. Like it looked like that, but it read like something else. And then this is kind of that too. Like it's a little bit, just trying to capture that pulpy. And Sonya comes from. She's not the Sonya we know is not exactly a Howard character, but she comes from that, and it's set in Conan's world. And though Conan's not in it,
Sure.
I went back and reread all my shit, so I knew where all the borders are and how the media fucking worked and all the like. I did all the research to make sure that it felt as much like one of those Conan stories. All the like. There's politics, obviously. You didn't read it for the politics, but there was, and so I played a lot with that stuff, and like what it would be like for Sonya to be this lone woman walking around, trying to live in this world of dirty, creepy, bucktooth, hairy men and stuff. So, yeah, so I had a really good time with it. I think it's, it's surprisingly profound. I think I had all these like moments. I had a lot of them when I was working at Deathstalker too. It was like something about writing these men, these just wrecks of men, like just these like unchangeable, toxic, like can't be noble because that would be too hard. Like this, I just love writing those guys because I kind of make fun of them the whole time.
Sure.
So yeah,
that's hilarious, man. First of all, another great Chicago and a great playwright, Mark Pracht, watching. That's good to see you, Mark. Absolutely. And thanks, Ange. Ange's doing my homework for you. He says the website says it's Bjorn Barents. And again, let's put up Bjorn's excellent work. This is a beautiful painted cover, man. It evokes memories of Great Gold Key, covers from that me and Steve will dive through the dollar bins looking for.
Yeah, there's some other great covers. We got Tom Ranney to do a bunch of covers, and yeah, there's some really nice stuff, the cover stuff on there. That's the thing when I do like a Dynamite one, I'm like, who am I competing with? I gotta go fucking, there you go. So
yeah, really. I would imagine, I don't know how many variants there are, but knowing Dynamite and stuff, there's probably like at least a dozen, if not more.
Yes.
So
them, yeah.
So yeah. Hey, Nick Barucci, if you're listening or watching, we're giving you love. So there you go. Radio Dormouse, good to see you, Radio. He says, hi, Tim. Yeah, I'm assuming how Tim, if this were a Western from 1940. Love Hack Slash and Loaded Bible, despite being a practicing Catholic. Well, there you go. I'm sorry you lost your leader, Radio. Pope Francis. Tim, did you see Conclave?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Great movie.
Such a great movie. Yeah. Yes.
Man, that's literally the only Oscar-nominated movie I saw. And I was blown away.
Well, if you're going to see one more Oscar-nominated movie, please see The Substance. Just
Of
trust
course,
me.
Demi Moore. Yes, indeed.
Just trust me. Don't ask any questions. Just watch it.
Oh well, I've seen some gross scenes, but no, I and also, that's a cool movie, and honestly, I still haven't seen it, but I really respect that it does what horror and sci-fi should do, and take an issue from today, and really spin it. And so, way to go, Demi Moore. Way to go, filmmaker. It sounds amazing.
Yeah, I can't believe that movie exists. That's my take on it.
I'm a wuss, Tim, when it comes to horror. I've told you this before. In fact, there was a moment that I was like, Tim, do you want to do a horror podcast with me? Because I get thankfully, and I'm very appreciative, but I get emails and screener links all the time to these great low budget horror movies. And yes, some of them are made on shoestrings, but I appreciate the passion behind them. And, it's not my genre. I've tried really, really hard, and it's just not my genre and stuff. But I respect the work you've done in it, both on film and, and behind the scenes and everything. So, or in comics as well.
I mean, that's what I like about horror so much is you can couch a message inside something. I mean, he mentioned Loaded Bible and liked it despite being a Catholic, but like, it's not anti-Catholic. I mean, it's just anti-institutional, decay, and it's anti-materialization of spirituality and all this other stuff, that I think you can do in horror, The Substance very, very strongly has a viewpoint. And I will tell you this about The Substance. I can handle pretty much anything. And there's like 2 moments in The Substance where I was like, I might be out. Like that, it takes a lot. But I hit that movie like once or twice. Like I might check out on this one. I stayed, but yeah, it's fucking gross.
The couple gross scenes in The Boys, I stuck with it, but I was like, whoa,
Oh, nothing in The Boys that The Substance makes The Boys look like,
a cartoon, a Saturday morning cartoon, probably.
Yeah, yes.
Sure. Dennis, and I'm glad you brought this up, Dennis, because we were going to talk about it. Recently revisited Revival. Heard the show's coming soon. And also, Mike Morisi is working on it as well.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, you'll see Revival news this week. The producer, Aaron Kuntz, has basically been counting stuff down, kind of revealing the creative team outside of the cast, which was already revealed. So if you follow Aaron Kuntz on Instagram or Blue Sky, Aaron has been putting stuff. So they have the soundtrack people and the producers and stuff. And I assume they're counting down to something. So you might want to pay attention to that. But yeah, Mike wrote the pilot, one version of the pilot that we used for the shooting. So,
oh, that's great. Good for Morisi. That's fantastic, man. No, and of course, you and Mike had a great movie on Shudder, Revealer.
Indeed, it's still on Shudder. You can still watch it on Shudder. Yeah,
excellent. Good to hear. Fantastic. Let's see here. Oh, B Thing says combining Sam Raimi work with Red Sonja is reminding me how Xena has a lot in common with Sonja. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, we were definitely. I was thinking about that while I was making it, and I kind of try to do the opposite. It's like, how are they different? And I try to really make it like Xena's and Hercules' world was kind of clean comparatively. Like, I was like, I want this to be like you wouldn't want to be here. This is not a nice fantasy world. This is this is a dirty, gritty, hard place to live. It makes guys like Conan and Red Sonja. That's that kind of place.
Gail Simone's been driving me nuts because, of course, she wrote that Red Sonja book that came out either late last year or early this year.
Yeah,
and her take on Red Sonja has always cracked me up.
Yeah, she's got. I read all her stuff. I reread it for this book. I wanted to use the older version, but I was like, the voice that Gail has on there, I think, is what I want to get in my head. Like that very specific, like sincere but snarky, which is Gail in general. But yeah, for this, I definitely felt like I had to play the kind of straight. Someone had to be a straight man to Ash.
Sure.
That Red Sonja kind of, not quite Shakespearean, but
Fair enough. All right. And Revival So are we, like you said, we'll get more news this week in terms of what's about to happen. You and Mike got to visit the set, you and Mike North?
Yeah.
Mike Norton, excuse me. That Mike North, everybody, is my old radio partner. Mike Norton, of course, the writer and artist that Tim has collaborated with on and off over the years, including Revival.
Yes, and we both went up to St. John where they filmed it in December. So we went separately time-wise in December. So we got to see like it shot and meet the cast, and it was incredible. Really weird, just so weird. There's a weird thing to have, like, see stuff you made up like with just this. You're like, no, there, make that up, and then somebody has to like build this shit and like 50 people standing outside in sub-zero weather in a forest in Canada with a crane trying to turn over a truck full of body parts. Like, you're just like, what have I done?
Wow.
I typed this and now here's this, this whole production. But it's awesome. And I'm really, the way this shook out was that, we had done this thing with a smaller production company instead of going with a network. So, when we first came out Rival, we sold the rights to it to NBC. And then after 2 years, we were like, let's not do the Hollywood thing. Let's do it, with somebody local. And so we ended up working with Luke Boyce and Brett Hayes, and they had a production company in Champaign, and they stuck with it for 7 years, and they kept on working it and got it on Sci-Fi Network. So it's crazy, but that happened. Like, that's a real thing that it is definitely filmed. It definitely exists. And as long as the world isn't over by the summer sometime, it'll be out on TV.
And on the Sci-Fi Channel.
Yep.
Fantastic, man. That's great. And Ange, I'm glad you brought this up because she's Tim's sister-in-law. The Jenny Frison covers on Revival were incredible. Absolutely.
I mean,
come on.
We were the early ones to go, hey, I think this Jenny Frison person might be a big deal someday. And she also made our book a big deal. So it was a mutual relationship that worked out great. And then now she's in my family. So that all shook out just fine for everybody involved. But
now she and Steve are two of my favorite people, and they know that. And I'm always happy to see them at cons. And immediately Jenny won me over because she's an old movie freak, and it's so great to see not only young men but young women going like, oh yeah, I like X, Y, and Z, and it's like, all right, you can stay. That's good to know. You can stay. We can have conversations.
They know they can talk to you about the old movies. That's that. Yeah.
Yeah, man. No, that's fantastic. So we've mentioned Hack Slash here and there, and I saw your post today, and I'm so happy for you, man. My God, how many times have they gone back to press on the first volume of Hack Slash?
I believe it's 13 times. The math's a little hairy because we printed a Devil's Due first. That's the Devil's Due version, and then it went to Image. So there are, I believe there are 4 versions from Devil's Due, and I believe there are 9 or 10. So it's either 13 or 14 reprints of that book. Which,
that's great, man.
I mean, and that's the thing is, like, there's success in like monthly comics, and then there's this other world. And it's weird because they're not often the same thing, So like, because sometimes and it's not like direct frustration, but like knowing that Hack Slash in the real mainstream, I guess, like people were picking it up, and they keep picking it up, and it, you know what I mean? Like it just keeps on selling. I don't have to do anything except work more Hack Slash books. But it's like not something that you can pull off easily in the like direct market. It's weird. It's just like there's such drastic. And I don't know why they've diverged so far from each other. So, but I think there's a world of like horror fans and genre fans who they'll read comics, they love comics, but comics is another thing they enjoy. Whereas like the direct market is sort of the world of like, I'm a fan of superheroes, right? It's like it's sort of a weird. It's become such a chasm that it used to be like there were kind of some crossover there, and now it's just kind of like it's crazy.
I hear you.
I see it all the time now, So
well, and I wonder if with the Revival stuff, I hope that there might still be some Hollywood interest in Hack Slash. I remember that girl that used to be on Warehouse 13.
Yeah, Allison. Yeah.
Yeah. I forget her whole name, but
Yeah.
what's her last name?
Scagliotti. Yeah.
There you go. And and it's like, oh man, she'd make a great Cassie Hack. Absolutely. And I'm sure there are tons of other young actresses that would be terrific in this. And I always respected you for not watching Buffy for fear of, accidentally tapping into something that Whedon was putting out there and everything. Have you ever gotten to Buffy?
No, I didn't. And well, now it feels like it's too late for me. But yeah, I mean, I feel like, and there's also just this weird, like in a weird way, that sort of template. The girl fights monsters. It's not like that's new. Something we've done it all.
Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween, absolutely, man.
When it goes back to all these long mythologies and stuff, but like the Buffy ended up looking. It ends up it's sort of faded a little bit because it looks aged, I guess. Whereas like Hackslash, like we made her goth girl, and goth fashions have never changed, right? Like my wife and I went to a goth club over here in Chicago. We were the oldest people there, and they all looked exactly like goth people did when I was going there when I was 23. It's like, so it's, that fashion and stuff, that look still works, so I think that's always worked to our advantage. This goth is perfect. It cannot be changed. There's no reason to do anything different. So, the plaid skirt and the
makeup.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, the Suicide Girl look, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't mean that for people, that's not a pejorative, everybody. If you don't remember, because it was about 15 years ago, there were a group of young ladies and a website and everything, and there was Suicide Girls, and they were goth girls. Yeah,
20 years, Joe.
Good Lord, it was 20. Well, again, once again, showing my age. No, honestly, another thing, Tim, I don't know about you, but there are so many teen oriented TV shows and films. Hey, man, I'm an old man now, and again, God bless you. Go forth and conquer, my sons and daughters. But it's like, I'll hear about a show, and it's like, oh, it's this great teen ensemble show, and I'm like, I'm not a teen anymore, man. I got more gray than black anymore, man. What are you talking about? Forget about it. It's not.
It's just not everything has to be for everybody. I mean, I think that's
no, of course not. Absolutely.
It's really great to let the kids have their shit too. Minecraft,
the Minecraft movie.
Yeah,
come on.
Yeah,
great.
That exists, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
and doing well. Fantastic. It's putting. I mean, I don't want kids to go do what like the Rocky Horror kids used to do and probably still do. Should anybody do a revival of Rocky Horror? I mean, some of the violence and some of the tearing up the theaters and stuff. But hey, have a good time. Just don't hurt the theater. That's all.
It's just, I think the teen stuff too is like, I can still do that stuff, but then you find yourself relating to, they used to relate to the teenager and you could still understand it, but now you're like, that dad in the background has got it together. Like that's you just start to relate to things differently, when you get older. So I definitely found that. I was talking about this when I was working on the Ninja Turtles Master of the Universe stuff. Like when I was a kid, obviously it's like, hell yeah, Ninja Turtles and Prince Adam. And now I'm like, hell yeah, Splinter and Man at Arms. You fucking old champions, you're awesome.
No, dude, I get it. My God, the Captain America Brave New World movie with, the Isaiah Bradley version of Cap that Carl Lumley played. I'm like, hey, you guys blew it because I wanted to see the old man in the Captain America suit start kicking ass and everything. Lumley's going to be at Terrificon, the Connecticut show. And Mitch already told me, and I hope I'm not spoiling anything here, everybody. But I think he's mentioned it on our show. But so I think I'm okay. I'll text him and make sure I'm okay. No, dumbass, I didn't say anything. But no, Susan Eisenberg or Susan, I think it's shame on me. The animated Amazon Wonder Woman herself got the whole cast together, including Carl, to do a table read of Justice League scenes. Andrea Romano gave us the scripts, and it was terrific. And we got Carl, and Carl doesn't do it. We're excited that he's going to be at this convention because he really never did conventions for decades. And, not only can he talk about, doing the Captain America Isaiah Bradley thing, but, he's the voice of Martian Manhunter, and he on Alias all those years. And, I mean, hell, he was, as you know, early 90s, the Mantis on Fox.
Oh, yeah. Holy shit, Sam Raimi, speaking of, right? That was...
Yeah, yes. So cool stuff. Well, congratulations that Hack Slash is the gift that keeps on giving. That's terrific. And you're right. Especially something that old, not a lot of that stuff has legs, man. So that's really huge. That's fantastic. So here, B Thing says, I got into Buffy when I was in high school, 10 years after it ended. It helped me navigate being a teenager, sure. But rewatching it now is something like, I don't want to relive being a teenager. Yeah, well, honestly, man, I was like in my 40s when it was happening. And my boss at my radio station was like, well, at least you got to watch Angel. And I'm like, I don't know, man, it's a Buffy spinoff. And it was the 5th season. And he goes, in a lot of ways, it's kind of like a plainclothes Batman. And I'm like, oh, all right, I'll watch that. And I got into Angel, and TNT was doing the reruns of Angel, so I really got into Angel. And then my boss was like, "Well, now you got to watch Buffy." Christ, I mean, that's where it all came from. And I'm like, "Yeah, all right." And Buffy's great, great show, sure.
I'm sure. I mean, I have nothing but respect for any sort of genre stuff that makes that big of a cultural impact, and it was clearly well written, and obviously things didn't always shake out as far as the reputation of everybody involved, but. And plus, like, I think that when we first came out of the Hack Slash, we did get a lot of like, oh, this is just Buffy, and I was like, I haven't seen Buffy, so I trust you. I don't know, but I've definitely seen all the same shit Joss Whedon has. I've definitely seen all the same things that he's pulling from. So that is, there's nothing new under the sun. There's just your voice in it. Like that's right. Like Batman was originally just traced over Superman. I mean, that's just a fact. I'm not making that up. That's true. So, it's just the voice that you put to it that ends up mattering. So,
do you table at horror conventions still?
Yeah, well, we're going to start doing it more now. I'm doing IllCon on Saturday, and then I'm doing Nightmare Weekend on Sunday.
Oh,
so
great!
2 horror cons. They're kind of, I've done it. I have tended to go to horror cons as a fan. Just to keep something for myself, like don't turn all your hobbies into jobbies, and just a piece of advice in general. But I've done it, and I always have a good time. It's a different world for sure. Like because horror fans, I just always think of this one time I was at a horror convention, and I was walking around buying stuff, and there was this one booth, and they had this entire wall of Hack Slash omnibuses, and I was like, I could say, hey, those are mine. I could sign them for you. Or I could just say fucking nothing and just keep walking, So I did. And it was great.
That's cool.
So, yeah, that's just, like that's it's a fandom-based world, but it's more people are into the genre. So they'll definitely love the people who are in it, but it's not as quite of a personality cult like comics is or, a lot of other genres for sure. So
I remember being at a convention and an Oscar went Barry Levinson. For a second, I couldn't think of his name. He was at New York Comic Con, and I recognized him. And I think he was like, "Oh fuck, man, I'm just here as a fan. Just let me do my thing." And I mean, he was polite, but I could just see it in his eyes. He's like, "All right, you know who I am." And also the great actor from 30 Rock, Scott Adsit.
Oh yeah. He's
and really, like, we're close enough in age, and he went to one of my rival high schools in our division and everything. So I've gotten to know him over the years, and massive comic book fan. And I'm like, hey, would you ever want to do the show? He goes, this is just my thing and he goes, I really appreciate you asking. And he said, no, I just want it to be my thing. And I mean, literally was buying original art from Phil Noto and other great guys and stuff that we know. And I'm just like, oh, that's really cool. So again, I absolutely respect that. I hope I'm not outing both of these guys mentioning it, but
like Patton, I mean, I just did C2E2 with Patton, and he just, he really just wanted to do it as a comic book writer, like he was really just, that's what he wanted to be there for. He loves comics. He wanted to show off Minor Threats, like that's what he wanted to be there for. But he is famous for other stuff, too.
Of course.
So,
I'm happy for him and Jordan. The MODOK series was great on Hulu. Very funny. And everything that Patton does on camera that's related to superheroes and everything. Hell, isn't he in? Is he in Superman? I forget what he's in. Or well, I know he's going to be in Star Trek this coming season.
Yeah.
So we got that. But also, no, Minor Threats is really cool, and our buddy Heath Corson is doing a thing for that. Brownie isn't Brownie doing something for them or did cover?
Barfly.
Yeah, Barfly. That's right. So yeah, I'll be talking to Jordan in the weeks ahead and everything. So that'll be fun. Dennis, last question before he goes to bed. Tim, we need more drawing from you. Any plans? Thanks for a wonderful chat. Can't wait for Godzilla.
Yeah, I did a cover for Godzilla. Well, that one that you showed, I drew that one. And then I did one for the new series. I drew that Godzilla story in Chicago vs. Godzilla. That was like the last interior pages I've drawn in a while. But I have a new book coming up that I'm drawing, an image book. I just have to get on it. But yes, because Local Man really reminded me that I actually like to sit and draw, and so that was a big part of doing a book like that, is Tony and I being able to split the efforts. Tony had to do a lot more work than I did, but give me a chance to draw again, because I just feel like it's easy to kind of forget that I like drawing, So yeah, I'll do more of it. I'll definitely do that image book we have coming up, and then assorted covers here and there. I'm sure I'll be doing stuff.
Is this First Hack Slash? Is that you as well?
That is me.
I thought so. Okay, yeah. I of course have a great Iron Man that Tim did for me for the Hero Initiative, and oh man, Tim, I should take a photo of it because my place is a shambles. That's why I podcast in the dark sometimes. But truly, I had it framed, and my buddy's father-in-law had a framing store and put a really nice red background to frame your beyond the frame itself, and it's a nice presentation and stuff. And no, it's one of my prizes. The people I do let in, like, oh, that's a cool Iron Man. I'm like, Tim Seeley drew that.
Nobody ever asked me to draw Iron Man, so I love Iron Man. So that thank you. That's good stuff.
One of my favorite characters, man. Come on, even back back in the Demon in a Bottle years and stuff like that, man. No, that's and of course the original cartoon, the Marvel Superheroes cartoons. I've got to save Pepper. Dean Warmer from Animal House, everybody, as Iron Man. And again, Dean Warmer is an aging reference, but yeah, the great character actor John Vernon as Iron Man.
Wow, I didn't know. See, that's Johnny.
Yes, before Downey, he's our first Iron Man. Absolutely, man. And I used to love you guys all making fun of Thor, and I know that was more Norton, but you're Jane, and the wonderful Shakespearean.
Yeah,
my father Loki, my brother. Hilarious.
Yeah. We used to watch this on shitty laser disc back when I was a kid.
Sure.
Yeah. So
somebody on YouTube, and maybe others are aware of it as well, put together, I'm not kidding everybody, a 6-hour supercut of all the cartoons of the Marvel superhero stuff. And it's great. And it goes story by story. So you get the full chapters of whatever story and stuff. Outstanding. Fantastic. So I recommend it. If you can handle the limited animation that they were doing back then, it's a lot of fun. So there you go. Oh, Dennis says, you said that was your last comment, Dennis. I bought a page of From Local Man. Truly awesome work. Love it. So that's cool. Yeah, congrats to you and Tony on Local Man. Are we going to get more of it?
I'm sure we will. I mean, we keep working on this other thing, and then we have Local Man ideas. Like, nope. But
new thing from you and Tony, has it been announced or coming soon?
Coming soon. Hopefully, but we have to work. Just sit down and fucking do it. But yeah, I don't know. Local Man is my favorite shit I ever made. But there is this. This comes out in July. Here, I just got. It sent.
Nice. Look at that. Look how big that is. Local Man Omnibus, everybody.
Isn't that pretty?
That's gorgeous. Absolutely. Congratulations.
The shit out of this thing.
Absolutely. No, I truly, man, I'm so happy for you and Tony. And really, I mean, I as I've said, this is my 20th year, which is insane. And I feel a real kinship with you and Norton and Fleece and a lot of these people that I've known when I was starting. And you guys were more experienced than I was. But I don't know. I feel like, especially the last 20 years, I've kind of grown up alongside you. And while I'm doing my thing, you guys are doing your things. And then just the way your careers have evolved and the great opportunities you've gotten both in print and now behind the camera and everything with Revival coming up. Way to go, man.
Thank you, John. And you as well. Always killing it, brother. Always killing
it. We're trying. That's all I can do is try. But thanks a lot, and always good to talk to you. And yeah, man, I don't know when the next big Tim Seeley book is being announced. Hopefully sometime in the summer or fall.
Well, hopefully, maybe we can get back together on the Revival first episode or something.
That'd be awesome. Dude, if you guys are willing and you can alternate or whatever your schedules would allow, I'd love to do an after show weekly thing with you guys.
We can Luke and Aaron maybe too. So
sure.
Producers, the writers, yeah.
That'd be amazing. No, please, let's talk about that. That'd be incredible.
Happy to do it.
All right, buddy. Excellent. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. Big Marvel, and I'm really glad because I felt I had been neglecting Marvel the last couple of weeks. So I'm glad we had the opportunity tonight to talk about Rogue. I had Soul on yesterday, Charles Soule, to talk about Daredevil and Muse and Kingpin and all the like, and his Star Wars work for Marvel and everything. Tomorrow, my good friend Paul Jenkins returns to Word Balloon to talk about the Sentry and his big part in Thunderbolts. He was at the premiere yesterday, and I'm sure he'll have a lot of great celebrity stories for us. And, of course, we'll go back and discuss the origins of the Sentry and without spoiling how it plays out in the Thunderbolts movie. So all that's tomorrow on Word Balloon Live. Until then, everybody stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.